Scream 6 is the sixth installment, and which now considers to be a Scream franchise. The survivors of the Ghostface killings leave Woodsboro behind and start a fresh chapter in New York City. Now, I grew up watching the Scream films in my teens, and I loved them. This was way before I was watching much heavier slasher films such as Halloween and Friday the 13th. And I don't know why, but I've always felt that the Scream films have always been appropriate for teens at a certain point. With the Scream films, I absolutely loved Scream 1 and Scream 2. Scream 3, I honestly don't remember that much about it. Scream 4, I very much appreciated what Wes Craven was showing. And Scream 5, which is actually called Scream, I do have my mixed feelings about that film. And here we are, just 1 year later with Scream 6, and like the previous film, I do have my mixed feelings about this as well. Starting off with the positives, the Ghostface in Scream 6 is relentless and menacing. Now, for those that have seen the previous Scream films, you would have noticed that the other Ghostfaces have been a bit more goofier and less self-aware when they're fighting against the victims. A lot of falling over and falling down, but not with this Ghostface. This new version has more energy, more self-aware, and it makes the presence more intense and afraid. So I felt Scream 6 did an excellent job with this new Ghostface, and especially from its kills. With the kills, they were very gory and brutal, and this is possibly now the goriest Scream film. Regarding the tone on the scary scenes, they did work pretty well. For example, you would have seen in the trailer of a scene in a corner shop where Ghostface grabs a shotgun. There is definitely some intensity happening in that scene. And with the underground tube station scene, this scene goes on and on of building the suspense, as you see many members of the public dressing up as Ghostface for Halloween, and other iconic horror characters there as well. And it's so suspenseful because you just cannot tell who is the killer, and you're just waiting for the scare to happen. And the film intentionally likes to mess around with us. There are a few characters who are on one train and others on a second one, and what I found to be stressful was the scene keeps on cutting back and forth to see their perspective of the suspense building and building, as the characters have about 10 stops to get to their destination, and you're just waiting for something to kick off while the characters are feeling so on edge and nervous, just like we are. So yeah, the underground tube scene, which you saw in the trailer, it does work very well. Scream 6 has a decent cast and some decent performances. We have Melissa Barrera, Janet Ortega, Jasmine Savoy Brown, Mason Goodin, and Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers, who all return in this. With the new cast, we have Tony Revolori, Samara Weaving, Jack Champion, Josh Segarra, and Dermot Mulroney, all do a fine job in this film. Hayden Panettiere, who the Scream fans will know her from Scream 4 as Kirby Reed, and returns in this, and who does have an important role without spoiling. Unfortunately, Neve Campbell, who we all know as Sidney Prescott, does not return in Scream 6 due to salary issues. I honestly was fine with that, but it was a bit strange that she gets mentioned in the film that Sidney has her happy ending. I liked that Scream 6 was set in New York, which makes it different and refreshing for a change of scenery. This was a much better job than Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Goes to Manhattan did. So I do feel Scream 6 does have some enjoyment, excitement and intensity happening there. Now I want to discuss my negatives on the film. I did feel Scream 6 does have some heavy dialogue scenes. With heavy dialogue, I do lose interest if it goes on and on in multiple scenes. And I just don't understand why the makers think that the audience just don't understand show and don't tell. I did feel a little bit bored during the second act of the film, and that also did not help the long duration of the film, making it a 2 hours and 2 minute film, and which makes Scream 6 to be the longest, which it didn't need to be, by the way. Another issue I had with Scream 6 was nothing really new was provided from the plot of the film. As I mentioned, we have the enjoyment of the kills, the intense and excited atmosphere that was happening, and it does have the typical self-aware meta wink-wink to the audience. And I don't know about anyone else who loves the Scream films, but I'm at this point now where I just feel like I'm just tired of this style. This clever parody that Wes Craven created from the first film resurrected the slasher genre and Back then, it felt new, enjoyable, and exciting, and it was something special just after he created a new nightmare. But it's now just starting to get repetitive, and as I mentioned, it's tiring now. I have noticed a lot of people still enjoy this style in the horror genre, and I'm glad because the Scream films are not just constantly doom and gloom, but with charm and personality to them. It just has a plot that partly is exciting and familiar, but just tiring now. Now, before I wrap up, I do want to mention another issue I had with Scream 6. There was these unexpected and ridiculous moments when characters get stabbed. Like, there is this one character who gets stabbed multiple times in the chest, and you would think, well, that's the end of them. But then later they would just appear being like, yeah, I'm all good. It's just a scratch, it's nothing, I'll live another day. I just don't understand why there are some films and television shows that are so afraid of killing the goodies. You know, you've got a well-known character who's had so much development and likeness to them, and having them killed off in the end can have a pretty unforgettable and emotional end for their story. Overall, Scream 6 has its enjoyment moments and will keep you on guessing, but it's a plot that did not really provide anything new in the end. There will possibly be a 7th film. I've heard some very good box office numbers, which is fantastic for cinemas around the world. I don't know what they're going to do, because I just don't know what else they can provide now for this franchise. Let's just have Ghostface go up to space next. Jason Voorhees did it, The Fast and the Furious did it. Why not? It could work. You know, you got the tagline there. In space, no one can hear you scream. Based on my Letterboxd rating, I'm going to give Scream 6 a 3-star out of 5. Thank you so much for watching, and look out for more videos coming your way.